Today, we're going to do a deep dive into the tactical history of the 4-3-3 and pressing systems that have become so prevalent that we're going to answer your transfer questions. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot Smith, Blackman on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. We did player ratings on Monday. We went for 2 hours. That's great. But sometimes you just got to do what the people want, which is lean into transfers. And we're going to do it by answering your questions on social media and in the Discord. I think this time of year, we're going to balance back and forth between sort of creative, non-transfery stuff. So we'll do a best of the Emirates draft. We'll do tactical analysis and insight. We'll cover some news as it breaks and stuff like that. But we'll also try to have fun transfer episodes. Maybe what we'll do is, one episode a week stays on all the transfer news and things that are happening that way. And the other episode a week steps outside of transfers so you're not inundated with it. But what's that I hear? What's that you're saying? You want to be inundated with transfer news? Well, have I got the answer to what you crave? We are doing a transfer daily every single day over on Patreon. Every single day. If it is a day, then there's a transfer daily. Sometimes they're with Paul. Sometimes they're with Scott. Sometimes they're with Tim. Sometimes, like Friday, they're with Clive. And we got one of the great Clive quotes ever on that episode. You can see it on socials. It's one of my favorite ever. Sometimes it's just me for 20 minutes, giving me the update. So you don't have to doom scroll. Let me doom scroll. Let me rot what little is left of my brain. And it's not much, I tell you, the pea-sized thing in between my ears. We did the most fun episode of the summer yesterday. Isn't that always the way? With Phil. We did Phil's summer 2025 transfer bonanza. We analyzed 30 players and gave all of them a letter grade for their fit for Arsenal. Phil went nuts. 30 players. We had 2 different internet outages. It took us 7.5 hours to record it. That's how dedicated we are to getting you absolute nonsense for your earballs and eyeballs if you watch. So we love you. By the way, I haven't asked in a long time. It only takes a second. If you would be so kind as to tap a 5-star thingy on your app thingy, it actually really helps us. Helps other people find us. And then what you can do is you can write like, hey, I gave them 5 stars, but these guys are wankers. That's totally fine. It's the 5 stars that matter. So anyway, we love you so much. Code AVP to get into the Patreon, half off, and get every single day an episode. Just a little update. Something while you're mowing the lawn, walking the dog, doing the workout, doing really anyone or anything. You could be listening to the Transfer Daily. Oh boy, I got to shut up and get on with the pod. And here to do the pod with me is the man you know as Paz. I know him as the guy whose audio drives me nuts. It's Paul. Hello, Paul.
Woo. I'm very, very excited to be on here with you guys. I want to find out who we're in for, what we're doing with the transfers. I mean, I could listen to it with everybody else, but I thought I could get in early and maybe I can ask a few questions. Very excited to see what we're up to.
Paul is yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Keep going,
also,
please.
You're getting really good at these intros, by the way. I started to really, really enjoy them. So I'm
Only took me 904 episodes.
I mean, we still don't do banter. We're terrible at banter. I think it's because we don't actually care what is going on with the other person.
Or like each other, yeah.
Or like each other. But I was thinking while you were saying, a new name for the whole podcast thing, the whole enterprise, 5-star wankers.
5-star wankers. You know what?
That's us.
That. Please don't Google that. Unless you have safe browsing on or your cookies are clear. Don't Google 5-star wankers.
You will clear your cookies. Don't worry about that.
Hello, Clive.
Hello. I can't wait to see our Apple reviews now after Paul's landed.
Yeah, it's our Apple reviews or the reviews on the latest adult entertainment site. I don't know. You be the judge. Paul is here. Clive, are you ready to talk about football, please?
Yeah, I am. And I'm ready to be interrupted relentlessly. So yeah, it should be good fun, right? Come on, let's go.
By the way, the very first question I got, Elliot, do you regret agreeing to do a transfer daily? Of course not, he says, lying through his teeth. Okay, let's get to the one that I think has some people worried. I don't tend to worry, but there are some worriers out here. And this one comes from Highbury Related. Clive, Liverpool and City seem so keen to strengthen and showing real ambition to improve. Are you concerned we may get left behind? It is June 12th, after all.
Yeah, obviously we're concerned. It's going to be fun to watch and see how they develop. Well, City have got a different agenda, haven't they? They got the World Cup, whatever it's called, Club Cup, and so their window, they had to build their squad for that, and they've done that. And 27 players have popped off. to US to go and play in that tournament, and then we can watch all those players pull their hamstrings, right? So that's what they're doing. Whereas Liverpool is slightly different. So I thought Tim did a great explanation about what he would call the PSR summers. And Liverpool, Arsenal, and up to a point City last summer didn't really spend significantly. Then City decided in January to open the purse strings, which they have sold really well. So it's been a couple of $100 million in January and over $200 million in the summer. So they're flying, right? So where Liverpool didn't spend a penny apart from Kaiser last year. So they've got 2 years cash and they've just won the league. So they're not skinned. Arsenal have got the second Champions League year banked and the third year coming, so they can project forward a little bit. And we didn't spend too much last summer as well. So I expect Arsenal to move, and Liverpool are doing exactly what they should be doing, which is preparing their new core, because some of their key people, like Salah, for example, can't go on forever. So now's the time to build on the fact that you just won the league. So it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, when you see first 11s coming out and you see Verts and Gyokeres and Frimpong and flying fullbacks, and if they get a centre forward, you're thinking, crikey, they're going to look really, really strong, and which they will do on top of what they did last season. But when we get our players, we'll start to do our 11s, and then we can compare, right? So it's a little bit worrying, but there's plenty of time, and let's learn how Mr. Berta really operates before we get too concerned.
Yeah, I think June 12th is not the time to decide we're being left behind. I think it is fair to worry, Paul, about the activity you see from City or Liverpool, because I would have said at the end of last season before the window opened, and people may say this is nuts, but I would have had us as the favorite for the league. And I get there are going to be people rolling their eyes out of their head. But I still think if you make everybody fit and available, that the squad that got to 89 points, that plays really good football, in my view, would have been maybe not favorites, but co-favorites with a Liverpool, City, Arsenal, all sort of there in a cluster. Your mileage may vary, but it should be very tight. And I would base it on things like maybe a slight natural decline for Salah and Van Dijk, maybe City being in a bit of a rebuild mode with De Bruyne and Gundogan aging out and Walker going. And so I liked our odds. But the squads aren't the same. City are going very big on players I hate to admit I really like. I think Reinders is good. I think Cherky is good. I think those are good, sensible purchases. They made a lot of purchases in January, like Marmoush, who I really like, and players that haven't even fully integrated yet, like Kusanov and who's the midfielder? Nico Gonzalez, is it? Or I think that's it. Anyway, they got a midfielder. I can't even remember all their players. Liverpool, meanwhile, have gone big for what I think is the best player who will move this summer, Florian Wirtz, and now they're linked with fantasy signings like Barcola and Isak, so they seem ready to fire money cannons that they kept silent last summer. So it is fair, I think, to be at least a little concerned that at this point, the clubs we felt clustered with for a title race have made moves that significantly improve them. And we have not yet. Now, I use the word yet because we haven't, but for you, Paul, have they distanced themselves? Let me ask it this way. We still have plenty of time, but have they distanced themselves a bit with the moves they've made in terms of what we need to do to now reclose the gap, so to speak?
Well, certainly Liverpool seem to have kind of set the pace here and the bar. Those are serious signings. Wirtz, if they're going after Barcola and that's the level they're looking for in that area, that's super serious. Jeremy Frimpong, they're spending big.
They're going to get those flying fullbacks for sure. Have to replace Trent. But
yeah. And it's a year into, it's always one of those, I have to check his name, Michael Edwards. It's basically any two random Anglo-Saxon first names, but Michael Edwards I'm going with. He's had a year now to kind of settle in. He's got his year with Arne Slot. They've had their plan. They're ready to move. We, on the other hand, have just brought in Andrea Berta. No matter what you say, there's the kind of coming up to speed, getting a feel for things. I mean, it's part of it's feel, part of it is getting everybody aligned to make the decisions. And I don't think it's always the first picks that are the problem. Like, we have candidate number one in each area. It's what we saw in January when you suddenly need to pivot to candidate 2, 3, and 4. And I would imagine Andrea Berta has very different ideas once you get past the headline names we know about as to what we could do and where we could go. So, but from our standpoint, we should just be a little patient. It's kind of like stand back and let the medics work, right? Let them do the job. They're pros. We've been doing our work. Andrea Berta has been thinking about nothing else, probably for the last 6 months, photocopying everything he's got back in Atletico Madrid, thinking about watching every game in the Spanish, Portuguese, every Italian, every league, thinking, different profile, different setup, clean canvas. He was probably beginning to be pretty limited back at Atletico Madrid in terms of what that manager wanted and what type of player, and they had a fully built squad. He's coming in with a clean sheet of paper. I'll be really disappointed if we don't start to hear about some names we never even thought about before. I mean, my God, you come in with that position and we don't start to hear some names floated later on this summer. Some like the classic younger player we weren't thinking about that is not a starter, but he's like a year or two off from being a star. Be very disappointing if we don't pull in somebody new. So yeah,
Well,
it's a bit nerve jangling, especially when you look at Liverpool's work. But they've really had a year and have the plan and know what they're doing. So they will set the pace.
It is where you wonder about last summer again, by the way, because Liverpool basically did nothing, and it looks like they're using that extra money now to do something really special this summer. We did spend last summer, not huge, and I think net we were probably net neutral or even slightly net negative on spend. But again, we did spend, and whether the efficiency was there is for everyone to judge. By the way, Clive, we do need some creativity. There is a creative player at Real Madrid, a Spaniard there. I believe his name is Trent Alexander-Arnold. He's very creative. Have you seen this? Fluent Spanish? Like, of all the things for Liverpool fans to be triggered by, fully triggered by Trent speaking fluent Spanish. Would you say that that's a good place to put your anger and your opprobrium?
It's up to them. You got to be careful when you speak about Liverpool, right? And we've all got.
I didn't get their approval.
We've all got families, so I think. Well, yeah, he did a good job to make a first impression. So he's done that. I'm sure he's been learning, but I think he had a little bit of help from a teleprompter. It doesn't really matter. He's still brave enough to take that on with the accent. So fair play to him. He has a new job with new employers, and that's what happens, right? Bring your best suit.
That's how you impress.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah, nice suit too. By the way, on a serious topic, and I hate to do this to stop the pod essentially for this, but because we record this in the morning, and I have a lot on my plate to try to get ready, and I'm not across news. I am just learning about the air disaster, the plane crash in India. So without bringing the pod too far down, I just want to send love and condolences and hope for recovery from the families that are affected by it. Obviously, a real tragedy, very scary situation. Hopefully they will find more survivors. But for anyone listening who's been touched by that, we certainly send out our love and thoughts and hope for you to recover. So apologies for not getting that at the top of the pod. But again, like I said, just starting my day here and just getting across that information, unfortunately. So there you go. Okay, Clive, I guess I will stay with you on this question, not to bog down here, but just quickly on the City front, because we did get a number of questions related to what exactly are City doing right now? Are they changing tack a little to be maybe more like Chelsea, just collecting player registrations as assets? Do they fear a ban coming or some kind of punishment coming, and they're trying to asset stack to be ready for it? Because they seem like they're going really big again from January and this summer now as well. Svera Nipan, the latest that's going to join City, go right back on loan out to Rosenborg and probably wind up at Girona, knowing their multi-club model. The multi-club model obviously gives them advantages we don't have. So what do you think about City? Are we seeing something to be concerned about, or is it maybe presaging maybe a negative implication for them?
So what City and say Chelsea, they operate in a different way, and basically, I'm not up for comparing myself to them. They're doing their own thing. They have their model, their multi-club model. We don't, right? So they stack players of a certain age. They have different contract structure to what we have. If City get a ban for a few transfer windows, they've got their players in place. They're rebuilding their coaching staff, etc. Okay, people think they're going to go into National League. It's not going to happen, right? So, it's I don't want to look at them. I don't want to look at them. How can we compare? We're not educated enough to know what happens in those boardrooms, in those lawyer rooms. We're just not. We're going to find out probably January what's going to happen, and then it's going to be appealed, and then it's going to be appealed again. By the time we do that, these guys have just signed. Their contracts will be up for renewal. Do you see what I mean? We're living in fantasy land if we think this is going to land, and they're not going to take us to court, take the league to court time and time again, hoping to exhaust the resources, exhaust the finances. In the end, there'll be some form of compromise. That's what my gut feel says, right? Despite me hoping that there is some sort of rigor and punishment for teams that basically, potentially, allegedly commit fraud and pay people off the books, right? So that's serious stuff, right? So as for Chelsea, regarding the loopholes regarding selling assets back to themselves to provide them more room financially, the Premier League voted to keep that in. So from a Premier League perspective, they're going to be fine. From a UEFA perspective, they may get a fine. So they're not operating like us. So we got to stop looking at them. You know, we don't do this, right? We can't compare to what they do. What we can do, though, is compare to what Liverpool do. You know, they're a club which has got a similar model, similar ownership structure. They're very data-driven like we are. They understand their talent like we do. They've got a strong way of playing like we have. That's a proper football club, you know, and so that's what they've redone their infrastructure. Unlike Manchester United, their ground has been changed. Their training ground is sharp. They do things properly, right? So let's not look at City and look at Chelsea, you know, because I know we have to, because we compete against them, but we can't look at them and degrade what we're doing, because we live in a different world, I'm afraid.
Yeah, that's correct. And I would simply say that there's going to be a lot of speculation about why they're doing this, or, you know, what the reason is. But the one thing I will say is that, and I think we see this with Chelsea, you can acquire a lot of talent, and I think sometimes you can muddy the picture. You can make it harder to know exactly how the pieces fit together. I don't know that there's a lot of good examples of clubs with 40 good players thriving. You know, it still tends to be the teams that have a core of 14 or 15 very good players that go on and excel, even with the football calendar being as mad as it is. And they still have to replace some very, very important pieces. There isn't another Kevin De Bruyne. You know, there probably isn't another Ilkay Gundogan. There's probably not another Kyle Walker. And these are pieces that have to be replaced. And is Ryan Cherky definitely that guy? You know, no one's Kevin De Bruyne. Is Rangers definitely Gundogan? Maybe better than the Gundogan and Kevin De Bruyne we just saw, but not peak Centurion City, Clive.
Yeah, well, the good thing about this and what City and Liverpool are doing is they may change styles. And wouldn't that be exciting? Do you know what I mean? I mean, from a football perspective, not if they're sticking it in our net, it was not too exciting. But, you know, if they do change how they play, they've got a new fullback on the left-hand side, Aiton Nori. He creates lots of chances. They're going to push their fullbacks higher. Now they're moving away from the centre-back fullback model. They could do all sorts of things. Manchester United play a back three. Could City move to that? Real Madrid are moving to a back three. Liverpool go use flying fullbacks by the look of it. Verts play off the left potentially. Salah off the right. None of them hugging touchdowns anymore. You can see the 3-point of the arrow there coming straight for your heart of your team. I generally think it's exciting, the fact these new players are coming in. Because what I'm realising, just when you get a bit of perspective, when you study teams, when you study your own team, doing what we always did is not going to work anymore. We have to change. We've seen it for ourselves. The old Saliba to Partey to Odegaard to Saka link, well, that's been stopped, isn't it? It's been stopped. Teams are standing in those spaces. So if we don't do something different, we're going to be stopped. And it's already started, isn't it? The goals are decreasing. Chance creation is decreasing because people had a good couple of years looking at us do really, really well, and they're not having it. They're stopping us. So we have to go again. And so I find this really interesting because if we're honest, let's be honest, last season wasn't exactly Brazil 82 for anybody. Do you know what I mean? No. It wasn't great football. It was good because we're all invested, but it's not going to stick in our memories too long apart from European games, right? So yeah, I'm up for change. It's good, and we have to. It forces us to adapt. It really does.
Yeah.
And maybe, Elliot, what's going on with those teams, it jibes with Arteta saying the squad just isn't big enough. And here we are, we're thinking of kind of almost like for like in the replacements we're doing. And then you look at other clubs doing volume, right? If we're going to be in these competitions and we're going to go serious in the Premier League and the Champions, like if you look at this season, even if we'd stayed healthy, I think we would have really struggled to go deep in the Premier League again and the Champions League all the way. I think one of those was going to suffer badly. Never came to it in the end. And then we've seen other clubs, City in the past, taking all four cup competitions seriously. We're nowhere near being able to do all four competitions. And the international scene is getting worse, and we'll end up in this bloody Club World Cup. And it's basically 24/7 by 365 football. And our squad and our recruitments that we're looking at it right now are not really, we're not really framing it like that. And we can't get carried away adding on another 5 players because we've no sign that that's what the club's going to do. But Arteta has not just hinted, he's said he doesn't have the squad size to do what we're asked to do as a club. So maybe we'll start to see some of what's going on at City, not Chelsea, but they certainly got the players for it. They just don't have the level yet. And maybe we see more players come in this summer than we're expecting. Maybe they won't all be stars. Maybe they won't all be starters. But maybe we will actually need numbers.
Yeah. Well, this is, I think, a very typical Arsenal Vision podcast mailbag episode in that we have answered one question in 21 minutes. So kudos to us. Why don't we do the second question and then call it a day? I'll stay with you for a second, Paul. Foley87 in the Discord asks, is Odegaard a nailed-on starter next season? With a new striker, I could see Kai or even Marino playing a lot of minutes at right 8. Even if I believe, which I do, that we have overestimated the degree to which Odegaard has declined, and that a lot of it, I think, is still just related to injury and personal life situations, we could potentially add a striker that means that we have a lot of different types of players as options to play 8, including, of course, Marino and Kai. So is Odegaard a, quote, nailed-on starter? And especially given that Ethan might also you continue to develop at 18 as you naturally expect. What's your take?
I think he's a nailed-on starter. Like, I don't know how you plan on him not being, right? Unless they see him over the summer and they're like, he's still not back to the levels. I mean, what do you do when you have a guy who is a worldie? I mean, the level he was at the season before was just all day, every game. His levels were phenomenal, and they weren't this year. But what do, right? You can't plan around, he's going to be pretty good, but a bit average. Like, I don't think I'm going to love our football if it's constantly Havertz or Marino filling in for Odegaard. They'll do a job in certain games. But that is not an elite right 8. And, we need to get the boys back together on the right-hand side. That triangle is how we build a platform for the attack. I think that's going to continue to be the case. We need Yuri and Timber to get up to Ben White's levels of synchronicity with the other two guys. I mean, it's pretty good, but it's not quite at the Ben White ESP levels with Saka and Odegaard. There are improvements to come. There was he spent a lot of the season playing with Timber rather than White, which, I mean, Timber had a fantastic season. But in that one regard, that particular rotating triangle, it was never at the level that we saw at the best Odegaard. And, maybe that was Odegaard's fault. Maybe that was the fact we missed so much of Saka. But we need to get that back together, really get it spinning. That'll help build up Martin Odegaard. Get Zubamendi in midfield so that Martin Odegaard isn't trying to do everything in midfield all over the pitch and can, for a little while, focus on attacking and pressing. And everything else is covered, Martin. Just get yourself back in your rhythm, your sync. Because if you're out of sync and you're trying to do everything, that's going to take you away from what you do. So, look, you got to bank on him being a a worldie if you're Arteta. You can't build a plan on him being pretty good next year.
His numbers as a central midfielder were still elite this season in many respects. It's his numbers as a final third player that really took a dip. And I just don't know over the course of a long season that you can be both an elite central midfielder and an elite final third player. You don't see a lot of profiles like that. And
dropping
so maybe
in between the two centre backs and then not finishing your chance in the box 2 minutes later.
Yeah.
That's not how finishing in the box works generally.
Yeah, I mean, Zubimendi might help change that. We'll see. Clive, what's your thought?
Yeah, he sort of touched on it already. I mean, if Martin Odegaard comes past the halfway line, I would fine him. Do you know what I mean? Honestly, I'd fine him. And he's got a family now, so it started to cost him real money. And so I would fine him because what he's doing, he's coming deep to see. And he, by the way, there's an interview, Paul, you remember this, because I'm sure you mentioned it one of the pods ages ago. An interview said one of his weaknesses was he followed the ball. He came deep and started to follow the ball.
He talked to Guillaume Balaguer about that while he was still at Real Madrid. They did an interview on the pitch, and he said that to Guillaume.
Mate, just look at your clips from last season. You can see him coming deep, following the ball, and coming deep and playing passes square that are adding no value. Of course, what do? We haven't got enough people up the pitch. So end up with more people behind the ball than we need. You haven't got people. You've got people behind the ball. You know what you do? You pass to each other, because you've got an advantage. And while you're passing to each other, the other team are organising themselves. Then we think, okay, let's go forward now. So we give it to that bloke called Sesko, who then has three people kicking his ankles off. Then he releases it back into midfield. And then we look up and we have maybe one player who may, for the last 4 months, have been a centre mid in the central area. You're just not going to score like that, right? So we have to divide. And this is what Zubimendi's going to come in. He's going to make sure that the first phase of our build-up, he's going to control that a bit more. But there's no point in buying him if Odegaard's going to come and stand next to him. No point at all. It's about keeping people high up the pitch, right? So that is the key to us next season, because when we're high up the pitch, we've got a greater chance of pinning people back and moving the ball forward. So we need to just change our emphasis of how our attack really. I like how we attack. Generally, I generally do. But I do think we get around the ball too much, and we're a little bit easy-osy around that in non-threatening areas. And I'd rather see us risk giving the ball away in threatening areas and then counter-pressing than have comfortable possession. Now, I'd also like to see us be far more aggressive in the first 10 minutes, get that first goal in open play, then we can do what we flipping well like. Do you see what I mean? That's the issue. We haven't scored enough. So we remember these stale attacking periods. Can normally happen that either we're 1-0 up and still tense, or we're 1-1 and we've just drawn 14 games. Do you see what I mean? And so these things stick in your mind. So, but this is all part of the review. This is all part of where we are in our evolution and how we want to add people to change that. If you have a centre forward that can sprint, suddenly you've got a chance to go direct in a much earlier phase. So this is part of the fun. I'm genuinely excited to see us evolve. Generally, I am, right? So I'm not distressed about it.
Okay, well, I'm going to stay with you for a second, Clive. And this comes from King Kong in our Matchday chat channel, which in Discord is one of the more fun, but also more scary places on the internet. And love to the Disco Boys in Matchday chat. But I guess what I would... what he asked is, do we really need to go for these star talents outside the Premier League, or is the real solution to get reliable production from the attacking players we add from inside the Premier League? And one of the data points that was shared during this conversation we were having, Clive, in the last 5 seasons, only Erling Haaland has produced a 20-goal and assist season coming from outside the Premier League into it. So outside of Erling Haaland in the last 5 seasons, no player has moved from outside the Premier League to inside the Premier League and had 20 goals plus assists. Well, Ollie Watkins, the last 3 seasons, 32 goals and assists, 21 goals and assists, 24 goals and assists. No one's excited about him, right? Antoine Semenyo can't play left, can't play right, proven producer in the Premier League. So I think we'd all be more excited by these fantasy players like Sesko or Rodrigo. But are we failing to realize that maybe just some consistent production would actually advance our goals more in the short term?
It's an interesting one, right? Because I like the fantasy players. And we're talking about Florian Wirtz. They're going to spend a lot of money on that player. None of us think he's going to bomb out, right? We think, oh my God, Liverpool have got him. What are they doing? When someone else goes fantasy, we're happy to give them the numbers before they even kick the ball. So my view is that where we're shopping right now, the quality of player we're shopping right now, I feel that's less likely that's going to happen. Because everyone knows who they are and everyone knows what they've done and what they can do. Particularly, they've moved positions in Rodrigo's case, for example. Again, it comes down to your play style, Elliot. I know it sounds a bit boring, but if you get your play style right, then I think that's important. If you're going to not be aggressive in your running and movement, it doesn't matter what you do. No one's scoring any goals. It's just not going to happen. I think our emphasis of attack needs to be slightly different. Messaging is so important in coaching. And if the messaging is we just a simple message around goal scoring, rather than just playing, we have some very strong principles of play. And that's allowed us to have the second most points in the last 3 years. Right? But the emphasis in the messaging, if you buy some attackers, you have to change that to be far more goal-centric in what we're trying to do. I think it's just a very simple thing with the players, but you've got to have the tools, right? You can't do that at Mikel Merino at centre forward. You can't say, I want to be goal-centric, and you roll out a centre mid, right? And say, post up there, can you hold it up for us? And you got your main man's got a hamstring for 4 months. You can't do it, right? You can't do it. But if we get fit, healthy attackers, I think we can. I think that will maybe make us, any of the players coming from inside or outside league are going to be better for it. That's where I am with it.
Yeah. I mean, if you look and you say Mbumo, Cunha, Semenyo, Eze, right? You start to look around the league, Watkins. Familiarity breeds contempt. And I think with a lot of these moves, people just sort of roll their eyes like, doesn't move me. Now Sesko, he moves me. Rodrigo, Nico Williams, Bradley Barcola. These are all exciting things. But what I just told you is you haven't had a player other than Erling Haaland come into the league and get 20 goals and assists in 5 seasons. So there is an argument, Paul, that these players who we're just bored of because we've watched them so much can come in and do the thing we need, which is a player who can get on the pitch and give you goals and assists in the Premier League. They can do that. Whereas everything else is the mystery box. It is the classic meme from Family Guy, where Peter's sitting there and he's being offered a speedboat or a mystery box. And Lois, his wife, says, take the boat, Peter, take the boat. And he goes, but the mystery box could be anything. It could be a boat. And that's kind of how I feel. It's like Sesko could be anything. He could even score goals and get assists like Ollie Watkins. And that, I think, is the classic conundrum we're in. Do we want that exciting upside, that exciting unknown? Or have we maybe just forgotten how fortunate we would be to get a consistent producer in the Premier League into our squad? Oh, you are on mute, though. That is a professional requirement for you to be on mute at least once during an episode.
Yeah. Sorry, everybody. I feel like I've let us all down. I've let myself down.
Mostly yourself, yeah. Please carry on.
Yeah. It's funny when I look at like the list of names City are going through and the names they're losing, it says they're losing a lot of personality. Now, maybe these guys, obviously we know Ait Nouri, and some people will know these players in some depth, and I'm sure they all have lovely personalities, but it does seem like out of the City team, more and more over the last year, 2 years, they've gone to this homologous. I don't know if that's actually a real word that means anything I might need here. Hummus-like, blended, okay. Hummus-like, blended, homologous, I'm going back to it, thing where they're going to have a lot of very good players and a very good style of football. And I expect them to be very good, but not super exciting. Now, of course, anything could happen. Now, Nipan Sfera, very exciting young player, but might be a couple of years away from changing the world.
Are we going to go with a Nipan, Sfera there?
Yeah.
Sfera Nipan. By the way, he's going back to Rosenborg next season, so we know we're not going to see him next season, and who knows beyond that. Yeah.
So he's got a few years ahead, but there's a player with personality, but it does feel to me like Pep's got more and more boring. Liverpool have not got boring. Those players all have personality. personality.
I got to stop you. I disagree because I think Ryan Cherky is all personality. I mean, he is the classic example of a joker in the pack. He has some questions I think that have been raised about entourage and things like that and his fitness levels.
Yeah.
But when he's in the final third, that is the quintessential personality player, you know?
Yeah, fair enough. I mean, a little bit more on the average across all of the kind of volume players, and maybe it's just the volume effect. But when players come to us, it's again the dynamic that you connect to those personalities and what they do, and like even Zubimendi, very low key way of playing, but you connect to the players that come to you, and you see how impactful they will be for your club. And you see a personality that other supporters aren't going to see, a thing they can do for you. I really like my picture for what we're going to do is Sesko up top, Zubimendi. Nobody knows what we're going to do on the wing, but they should be exciting. They should be dynamic. They should be dribblers because we don't have actual strong dribblers off the wing.
I'll stop you there for a second too. There was from an Athletic article, there was a chart going around of dribble attempts and dribble success. And Martinelli, for example, is in the bottom left quadrant of that right now in terms of like his dribble success rate and dribble attempts have fallen off a cliff. Now that could be system oriented. I'm not picking on Martinelli, but I think it highlights to your point that a dribbler, someone who can start a player and create some devastation off the left through dribbling. I agree that that's a priority.
And we'll be getting those players from other leagues. And we haven't done so much of that in recent times. It's going to be different because those are going to be our starters.
Yeah.
So each summer is different. Each batch we bring in, you just can't. You go for the player that's the right fit. I hadn't really understood this, but apparently Arteta's had the hots for Zubimendi for several years now. I guess last year really threw me that he was the Liverpool project, but Arteta's had super strong eyes on that guy for forever, and I see parallels with how Arteta played to some degree. He knows what he wants there, so I think we're going to do three very strong players, and off the left wing we're going to have a player who can dribble the BJ's out of it. And I'm okay with what we're doing. And in other seasons, I see the PL thing and trusted and true. But you go where the answer is, and we've thought about these a long. Benjamin Sesko, we've been on that case. We've been on the striker case for a long time, looking at these guys, very consistent. Victor Gyokeres, Vlahovic before that. We have. Well, there's some differences there, but there's definitely a couple of types we've looked at, and they all seem to be coming from abroad, up from the striker type. That's what we're going to do here.
Yeah. Clive, do you want to have a final word on this? Just the idea that we've had a lot of success building our team from within the Premier League. We've had mixed success, some big success, but mixed success going outside the Premier League. And certainly when it comes to goals and assists, that is the part where I think you really need to get it right. So do you think that maybe we just dismiss players inside our own league purely from familiarity and boredom, and that's a dangerous approach to take?
Yeah, maybe we do. I think it's down to many, many factors when you buy a player, right? You have to learn about that player, what they like in training, how they react to being dropped, so many different things, where they are psychologically, where they are with their families, how will they settle, what's their language issues, etc. We've had situations with Big Gabby and Kivior where language was a problem for a while. I know it's defenders, Elliot, but I always go back to this classic example. I said it earlier this week as well. When we were looking at Gabriel Jesus and we looked at Isak, one was a bit more expensive, came from outside the league. His numbers were a little bit average. Gabriel Jesus was from City. We spent 45 compared to, I think it's 62 for Isak, right? Not one of us flinched on that. Didn't flinch, right? And after that first 3 months, we're watching Jesus, we're thinking, happy days, where's my open top bus ticket? Right? So he picks up an injury and he's been in and out of injury ever since. And Isak started a little bit slow, generally went into it. And now he's the preeminent centre forward in the world. Fixes all the problems. Channels, down the centre, hold up, running, finishing, both feet, the lot. And so you just got to pick your talent. Pick your talent properly. We have information to pick talent. We need to pick our talent properly. And like I say, I was behind the Jesus thing, 100%. But we all liked Isak as well, and we went with Jesus. And things that are out of our control changed that scenario, right? So pick your talent, see how they go, surround them properly. One of the big things I have, really, forget about inside outside the league, is just making sure that we invest in who we are. So if we are going to be this team that has sprinty wingers, then have more than one or two. Do you know what I mean? Man City have bought a lot of ball carriers this summer. They can see where the game is going, right? You have to have carriers to break these blocks. We haven't got enough. We need to add some. We're a bit pass heavy. So these are the things we need to fix, and then the talent will take care of itself because they'll be in an environment where they can show what they can do. I don't think there's a lot of talent in the world, and most of these guys can play. It's all about the environment and the stuff between the ears that really differentiate how far they go.
Paul?
My quick version of the first pass is at least two of the three players we're looking at are unicorn players' positions, right? The striker you want, the kind of a six that makes the whole bloody team work. Wherever you find that player, doesn't matter, right? Be great if it was in the Premier League, but I think that's truer of many other positions we will fill or have filled. These two players, wherever the player is that does the thing, like our whole future will revolve around those two players, the six and the striker. So if they're in Afghanistan, Bratislava, it doesn't matter. Those are two foreign places.
Yeah, and I take a point on that one. I figured that out all by myself. I would say this: Bradley Barcola, Rodrigo, right? They're going to cost more and potentially command more in wages than Watkins, Eze, Morgan Rogers, Semenyo. That doesn't mean they're not the better choice. That's not my point. My point is that I think we have a rare opportunity to win something soon. And we have to make a decision about whether we are chasing massive star potential upside with some of these signings, or we just want to say, hey, this team scored 91 goals when we were fit. Can we just add 10 goal, 5 assist players into the group? Can we add so that we don't have Marino playing striker, so that we don't have 30-year-old Leo Trossard who might be fading out of his usefulness, or we don't have an 18-year-old as our only wide option when Saka's not out? Right? Antoine Semenyo, does he improve us? Of course he does. Ollie Watkins, does he improve us? Of course he does. Does he improve us as much as what the upside of a Sesko and a Barcola might be? Probably not. But the error bars are smaller. And that's the whole thing with this, Clive. The more you go outside the league, the younger you go, the less known you go, the error bars get wider. And I just think we are chasing big silverware in the next 2 to 3 seasons. And so big error bars come with big risk and big price tags,
Yeah, I don't think you're going to get an argument from many people with that assessment, and I think it's really good.
I'll always get an argument from people.
But when, if you said to me, right now, we spend 80 million on Morgan Rogers or 80 million on Rodrigo, no, that's a conversation, right? And some people say, he's not really a winger, Clive, he's a 10. He's this, he's that. Hey, but it's a conversation, And right now, you look around English talents, young English talents, Morgan Rogers is right up there. Absolutely right up there. So it's all about who you pick, right, and what you want to achieve, right? I can look at us and say we lack a bit of creativity from wide areas. Rodrigo on paper probably looks okay, but if he's happy in Madrid, why are we killing ourselves? And it's all about that, how much people want to be there, etc., etc. So, mate, I'm open. Left-sided player, I'm less. I haven't got a clue, if I'm honest with you. I think I know what I want, but when I read a message, I change my mind. And so I like Nico Williams at the moment after these 2 games for Spain. Really like him.
Yeah, same.
But you do
off to Bayern, maybe.
Yeah, who knows, right? It depends what you read, right? So it's up to the guys to fix it for me. I like Morgan Rogers at the moment. I liked Eze for a couple of weeks, and then I thought, it's not going to work. He's too slow-footed. Not going to work out wide for long. So inside, he wants to be inside. Look at his age. He's got to be inside where he can cause damage. So it's up to the guys that have all the information to their fingertips and have all the contacts to come up with the right solution. But I'm happy with the centre forward choices. Any of the three are fine for me, but left side, I'm not so sure, generally.
Yeah, and it may be reductive, but I will say that I think the physically robust players we've brought in have performed pretty well for us, even from outside the league. Like Jurrien Timber is strong and robust. He's worked out great. Obviously, Gabriel. The sort of lightweight, more technical players, too, that we rolled the dice on a bit, in Sambi and Vieira, for example, hasn't worked. And so you look at the profile of a Morgan Rogers or Semenyo, physical athletes inside the Premier League, and then you look at someone like a Rodrigo, for example, who, by the way, I think he's up there as one of the most talented players you could possibly get in world football that might move this summer. Do I know for sure that physically he can come into the Premier League and deliver? I don't know. So these are really tough questions. And by the way, the reason I stayed on this topic so long is I think this is sort of the existential question for this project, which is, are we ready to trust our scouting, trust our talent evaluation, trust what's outside the Premier League, and go very big economically on an attacking player outside the Premier League? Because the last time we did that was Nico Pepe. That was the last big attacking player outside the Premier League that we went for. Now, we've had some huge success going outside the Premier League in our history to find attacking talent, whether it's Alexis Sanchez or Mesut Ozil, or you go back further than that even, obviously, and it's a very different football world that we were in. But this is probably going to be the biggest expenditure of money at Arsenal on an outside the Premier League attacker since Pepe.
Yeah, but the we doing it is totally different.
I get
We're a different club.
It doesn't mean it's a sea change moment.
Yeah, it doesn't mean we'll be better than the people who bought Nicolas Pepe, and we got to look inside ourselves. We were all very excited. That was a fun summer.
I put a song out for it.
that was the best ever. We got our money's worth out of him. That was the most fun any of us ever had that summer. Shame about the season that followed. But it's a good or bad. It's a totally different team that's going recruiting this time around. So we will see.
Yeah, Clive has typed something into the chat that I think is really ingenious. So I'll just say it because it's true. The nice thing in this instance is we are bringing that player or those players into a very, very good structure and platform and game system, game model that should support them well. We're going to talk a little about how the game model might change and a little bit about left wing options as well. But I should tell you about Manscaped before we do anything else, because if I don't, people might shave their privates with the wrong product. And then I have that on my hands, not their privates. The fact that they shave. You know what? I should just get on with the ad read because this is going nowhere good in a hurry. So the heat has officially arrived overseas. The Lawnmower 5.0 Ultra in the white hot special edition colorway from Manscaped is now available across the UK, Europe, and Australia. It's the same trimmer trusted by millions of men and their privates. Now with a clean white and gold finish that looks just as smooth as it shaves. But this is important to remember. If you shave your privates, you probably do it with a product you're not happy with. It's probably an old razor in your shower or some old trimmer you got on some e-commerce site that was $5 and you can't use it wet dry or the battery's always dead. I use this thing. So here's what I'll tell you. It can go completely smooth with the new foil attachment. It has an insanely long battery life. It works in the shower wet dry. It reduces the risk of nicks and cuts and irritation where it matters most. And so if you want good products, go to Manscaped. If you're going to do this thing, shaving your body, and you want good products, Manscaped has them. I think the quality is excellent. So White Hot looks smooth results. The White Hot 5.0 Ultra brings the heat without cooking your skin. It's sleek, easy to use, and way less terrifying than whatever you were using before. Use code ArsenalVision for 15% off your entire order at manscaped.com. That's 15% off with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. Stay smooth, stay cool, and leave the burns to the sun. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
That it?
Hey, Elliot, can I make a helpful suggestion?
I wish you wouldn't.
So I did. Oh, okay. Well, I'll make it anyway. I did a topiary course, a training course. Yeah. Out there with the bushes, shaping out swans. And
so you're going to say they get one free topiary instruction from you with the purchase? Is that what we're going with here?
I'm saying you can do this is what I've discovered. If you let things be for a while, if you let the garden grow for a while, and then having done a topiary course, you take the manscape and you take good care. You can come up with absolute a whole zoo.
They should sell stencils. That's what I would say. Okay.
Yeah, stencils.
Good. Moving on. All right. Clive, I think setting expectations is important. And one of the things that we may be falling into the trap of is setting the expectations that can't be achieved. And then we all complain that we didn't hit our unrealistic expectations. Mattia asked this question, and I have to admit, Mattia's math and not my math, but I'm going to just take Mattia's math and assume it's correct. Arsenal's biggest transfer spend in a window was 235 million euros, with 70 million in sales. Are fans naive to think it's realistic to get serious wide forwards on top of Zubamendi, striker, second goalkeeper, probably another midfielder, probably a defender? I think this is a really important question. There is an expectation that we're going to go winger, striker, midfielder, defender, goalkeeper, maybe another midfielder. Are we setting an expectation that can't be met only to be let down at the end of it?
I think, you started the podcast talking about what Liverpool and City are doing. So if we don't do it, we're not going to stay with them, are we?
Well said.
Not. So we have to. This isn't about what we can do. We have to. We have the money now. I generally felt, although I thought last time I obviously messed up, particularly the extra loans that we had to do. Because I think if we had some loan wiggle room in January, we could have fixed the problem, but we didn't. And we were contractually bound to keep those loans. So the problem started last summer. But when we didn't do anything in January, I thought, you know what? I can live with it if we do stuff in the summer when I know we're in the Champions League, we can plan forward. We have our second year of Champions League money that's banked and now usable. So I thought, we have to go in the summer. We have some pending sales, not massive sales, but we've got some things that we worked on the summer before. We've got a few to come, bring some money in. But I think it's time to spend. It's time to have the Havertz, Rice, Timber summer. It's time for it, mate. And with the fact that we have seemed to have lucked out with the backup goalkeeper and save some money there, that potentially can be used for a midfielder if Thomas Partey goes. Or we buy a left back in Euro Hato and say to Miles, mate, we're going to change your position. I'm going to do it from now. And you now become part of our midfield crew. I'm not sure we're going to do that, but it's an option, right? So we need to do it. This isn't really a choice. We are trying to compete at the top end of the game. We just come out the Champions League semi-finals. I don't know many Arsenal fans that are thinking we need to be back in semi-finals minimum next year, right? So that's where we start from. That's par. It's quarterfinals the year before. Semi-finals is now par. How are we going to get there with a low squad again? It's not going to happen, right? So we have to do it. There's no debate. We have to do it. Honestly, there is no debate. If we don't do it, we are literally saying we are not competing at the top end of the game. That's how strongly I feel about it.
The other thing, Clive, is it's really expensive whatever we do, right? If we spend a lot of money, but not enough, it's like paying for 3/4 of a heart transplant operation. It's like it doesn't get you anywhere. It just keeps you where you are. Your squad gets a year older. That window of opportunity goes past you again. If you spend less, then it looks like we're going to spend this summer. Then you fall behind and you start falling out of the champion. You're fighting for Champions League places, and you have that risk. Whatever you do, if you half-ass it, if you 3/4 ask it, if you go all in, it's going to be super expensive for the Cronkies no matter what we do. They might, it's now or never, right? They've got this, they've built this team. It's going to cost big money even if they don't do it. It'll cost them in opportunity. Absolutely. It'll cost them in spending 3/4 of the amount they needed, which is a shed load, and it not being sufficient, and the gap still between us and other clubs increasing. So I think we just got to do it. Clive, I must know this.
Well said, Paul. There's a couple of things just to add on top of that, right? So in January, we looked at Aston Villa spending, loan money on Rashford and Asensio and selling Duran, and they sort of gambled. And we look at them getting their results, and I thought they had a fantastic season, by the way. They didn't make the Champions League, so now they're sitting there in a bit of trouble. They've gambled, and they haven't got what they need to get with their wages to revenue being that high. Problems, right? Absolute problems for them going forward. And as for Arsenal, what have we done? So we've changed how we're viewed to the rest of the world. I know we didn't make it past PSG, but everyone was watching us. I know we got past Madrid and everyone was watching us. So now we have a new page in our brochure to sell to everybody. If you can't keep your Gabriels and Salibas and Sakas, that brochure's got some pages missing. So as the new signings are as important, re-signing those players and our young talents, Ethan and Miles, re-signing them says, mate, we're here. We're not going anywhere. So now to protect those players' careers, I heard somewhere Elliot, I heard something about Saka's had like 15,000 minutes or something like that. Mate, that's not good. That's not good. So we have responsibility to those players' careers. If you sign, we're going to supplement you with the talents to allow you to win. There is a choice here. We're at that stage now where it's actually quite fun because we have to do it. There is no debate. If we don't do it, then that's absolutely fine too. But people will lose jobs. That's how it happens, right?
Yeah.
We'll just lose jobs.
Yeah.
It's not even a debate.
And to Paul's point, I mean, look at what it cost to get us back to relevance when we had slipped down to 8th. You can slip out of the relevant group at the top, and then you're spending an enormous amount of money to dig yourself out of that hole. We had to do a lot of spending just to get back into the conversation. So you're essentially investing now to stay at the top as opposed to investing later just to try to climb back when you don't have Champions League revenue and things like that. So let me stay with you for a second, Clive, because I think, there's maybe a bit of a sea change happening here. And David Baratunk in the Discord says, what is going to be Arteta's big tactical innovation next season? With Liverpool and City going for touchline hugging, speedy fullbacks, some things are changing in the Premier League. And, we had other questions sort of relating to that, saying that and this is from Chico Vieira, we're moving forward with a more traditional or structured striker. If we're moving forward with a more traditional or structured striker, how are we planning to fix the left side, which has clearly struggled over the last 2 seasons? So there may be changes afoot if we go to someone like a Sesko. There may be changes afoot with how we attack the left-hand side, which needs to improve. What's the next tactical innovation you see coming, and will it be influenced by who we sign?
Yeah, I look at the season and comes in phases. We're going to have to, say we buy these players, like Sesko, for example, we're going to have to introduce him to the league, as you noted earlier, Elliot. And so I think it'll be interesting to see how he goes and who he dovetails with. And you have to remember also another thing, just to keep it back in your mind, I'm slightly off topic, but it's important. It's a World Cup year, right? So people have got some serious international football matches. So though we play 58, 59 games, some of these guys will play another 8 or so games on top. And we have
Plus
to manage
AFCON.
that. And, so 8 or 9 games on top, serious amount of international football that really means something because you're trying to get selected for a squad, right? So we have to manage that. So tactically now, I'm at the first phase. I'm looking at a first phase of our build-up needs to change slightly. How we use Zubimendi, how we retain people at the pitch needs to change slightly. A little bit more intelligence around the edge of the box, because I've said before, I think we're dumb around the edge of the box. How we convert high pressures into shooting opportunities, I think we're slow at that. I don't think we're bright at that. We're a fantastic off-the-ball team. Off-the-ball team should lead to more shots when we win the ball high up the pitch. So everyone agrees that we're the best off-the-ball team in the world. Well, mate, get your shots off and score. Be more clinical. And I think I have a more of a surface level on top of it like that. I'm happy in my fullbacks. All 4 of them, if you see what I mean, Ben White, Calafiori, Timber and Miles, I'm happy with them. I don't really want to see changes there, but they all offer something different. And that alone is a tactical change. Having them healthy changes us, because they all do different things. I think an over-reliance on Odegaard, I'm not the only person to say that, but having the bravery to change that position on occasion and do something else. If we do get another striker, I'd like to see us have an opportunity to play 2 strikers on occasion, and see what they can do together. Back 3 systems are going to become more in vogue for me. Arteta may decide, you know what, we lost how many points in winning positions? Do I go to a back 3 system earlier? I have the players to keep them active, to hold games. So that's the type of thing I see, shapes for scenarios rather than overall change to our principles. But new signings will maybe change that discussion.
Yeah. I do want to say, as we've been recording, there's some rumors that United might be in for Hugo Ekitike. And all I can say is I really, really don't want him to go there. He's a player that I have this sneaking suspicion might just be special. And the good news is if he goes to United, it means he's not. So I guess there's that. Paul, one of the things that drives a lot of this is sales. And where we've been a bit unfortunate is we haven't gotten any of that sweet, sweet Saudi money. And, it seems like everybody else gets a taste. It looks like Liverpool just going to get bailed out. People say, how can they spend 120, 130 million pounds on Florian Wirtz? Well, you know how you spend 120, 130 million pounds on Florian Wirtz? You get someone to take flop Darwin Nunez off your hands for 60 million pounds to go to Saudi. That's a guy they'd be giving away or maybe getting 10 million pounds for because of his wages, that they get 60 million for. And you know what they say? Well, with that extra 50 million, we just go to Florian Wirtz because now we have 50 million pounds that we wouldn't have had otherwise to book. So a question that Evie Bebe on Blue Sky asks, who do you think the first 50 million plus pound player sale will be in the Arteta era at Arsenal? Paul, is it time for us to figure out how to cash in on some big sales, get some of that sweet, sweet Saudi money? Who's going to be the first big 50 million or more sale in the Arteta era?
William Saliba.
People won't like it, but it's certainly a possibility.
Gabriel.
Can I be honest?
But we've signed
I'll just say
him
one
up.
thing. Unless it's Saudi coming in, you're rarely going to like a 50 million pound sale because it means you're selling someone you regard as important. That's why they're getting that much, unless it's Saudi coming in and giving you an inflated amount for a player you're trying to get shot of. But yeah, I take your point. So Saliba, what else do you have in there?
Saliba, Gabriel, we got signed up. We don't seem to do that middle ground to players. If somebody wants to pay us a lot of money, it is because they're the player we're not going to sell. To give us some credit, we've done brilliantly at not losing players. There's two sides to that. But there used to be a time we were terrified that we had good players, others will come in for them. So let me talk to that side of it. We defend our players and our player contracts. I don't really get nervous when I hear those rumors about whoever, Real Madrid, blah, 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 in for this player, that player. I think we've done remarkably well about keeping our assets since 2013, 2014. Name the last player we lost that made us cry. I can't. It's back in that era. It's almost the Fabregas era, right?
Yeah.
And then it stopped. We do not lose. I'm not saying we don't lose players that we kind of like, but I can't remember the one that upset me. It was generally time for them to go. And we've lost a few academy players that people are more or less attached to. But I think by and large, we'd say, no, that was good business. And, the only player I can think of that made me cry was Emile Smith-Rowe. And I don't know that we handled it brilliantly while he was at the club. But he, as it was, the state of where he was at with the club was the right move for him and everybody at that point. We maybe could have done more with him in the time leading up to that. There was a heck of a player there, but it is what it is. But we're not very good at getting real money for. So we're very good at getting money for our academy players. We can go down a list and name off 4 or 5 players we've got very good money for. Eddie Nketiah last summer. That was a nice deal, especially based on the season he had.
Yep.
Mm-hmm. That 30 million since Oxlade-Chamberlain, that 35-ish million number, we seem to be very good at getting that for, Willock, Iwobi, Smith-Rowe. We've done very nicely at that kind of level of player. We've done terrible at the player that came in that didn't work out. And yeah, we're not very good at that middle ground. I don't know why though. But I wouldn't offer a lot for Fabio Vieira. Nuno Tavares worth a few bob. But not in the 30 to 40 million range. We don't seem to have that 30 to 40 million for a guy who didn't quite work out, but was still very, very, very good for us. We don't seem to do that. We had a Nicolas Pepe, but we didn't have what was the chap you just mentioned from Liverpool?
Florian Wirtz.
No, the guy, Darwin Nunez.
Oh, Darwin Nunez. You mean they're
Yeah.
selling? I see what you mean.
We don't have the Darwin Nunez. We tend to have the Fabio Vieiras, unfortunately.
Yeah. So, I should mention also another thing that's breaking as we record, because it is the summer and things are constantly breaking, and this will all be covered on the Transfer Daily. But we've made a concrete bid for Victor Gyokeres, apparently, according to Portuguese papers that are reporting it, in the 55 million euro range plus 10. There is absolutely no question that Gyokeres is someone we've been looking at, with Sesko being top of our interest. And maybe this is a move to push RB Leipzig to adjust their valuation of their player. You just never know with this stuff. But Clive, that leads to a kind of fun question we got from AB_Gunner in the Discord. Really back to our unrealistic expectations. He says, it's a wild question. If we get a left winger and keep Havertz at 8 and Gabby Jesus will leave eventually, it makes sense for us to have two strikers. Is there any chance we get both Gyokeres and Sesko?
Oh, I don't think so. But you could see, it all depends, right? It all depends on the numbers, right? You keep your eyes on Aston Villa. That's all I'll say. You know, that's the place that could be in a bit of trouble, right? So keep your eyes on Ollie Watkins. They're probably not going to want to sell Morgan Rogers. There are assets they have, right? So let's see what they end up doing. I could see Watkins.
Well, if wages are the issue, selling Watkins really helps them, right? That would be a move that really helps them.
Yeah, Pierce asked about losses, isn't it? I suppose. So how they can get that back in, and do they have academy players? Jacob Ramsey, for example, is an academy player that's come through. Tottenham have looked at him a few times. Obviously, Tottenham have changed right now, so if they could sell him, that helps them a lot. But it's a shame you got to think that way. Somebody has come through and he's right there. So what's his space there? Talk about selling Martinez. I think the Watkins one, I still feel there's something in that, you know, as an extra one. But hey, look, it depends what I read at what time or what day and night it is. Whether I believe it or not, whether I'm vulnerable to a rumour or I'm vulnerable to stress. So yeah, I don't think so though, Elliot. I think it's going to be one of the three strikers that comes in and a wide player, a centre mid, a backup goalkeeper, and probably a right-footed defender.
Interesting. I have said this so many times in this pod. I cannot say it again. So let me say it one more time. I have no idea if Victor Gyokeres would come in and succeed in the Premier League. I have no idea if Benjamin Sesko would. These players look very talented and look very exciting. I just saw a post saying that Opta's analysis has half of the Portuguese league as being below League One. That's English League One, not League On, and the rest of it at championship level. I don't know what that means. I'm not drawing any conclusions. But if you want to tell me you feel excited about Victor Gyokeres, like I'm totally with you. You could also convince me that the boring in the league option is safer. I don't know. I'm so curious to see what we do. I think it's going to be hard to know the right strategy until we see them fail or succeed on the pitch for Arsenal. So I'll finish it with this, Clive. Wolf, like me in the Discord, asked this question, and it's not transfer related, but I think we get a palate cleanser. You're going to have a Transfer Daily later today where we'll cover the Gyokeres news, the Ekitike news, some Sesko news breaking as well as that. You can also check out Phil's Transfer Bonanza. I mean, we covered Watkins, Barcola, Gahey, Leao, and we've got some really, really good Rafa Leao content coming out on Patreon, by the way. Really top quality elite stuff. Gyokeres, Sesko, Nico Williams, Gittins, Rodrigo, Osimhen, Zubi, Agume, Lookman, Garnacho, Semenyo, Kepa, Rogers, Gordon, Julian Alvarez, João Pedro, Eze, Igor Paixão, Yildiz, Hato, Elkanus, Baleba, Kudus, Ekitike, Xavi Simons, and Darwin Nunez, all covered in that episode with Phil Costa that we put out. So I think you'd really like that. But Clive, final question from Wolf like me. Are you going to be watching the Club World Cup? Do you think it's a worthwhile competition to be on the calendar? If you will be watching, do you feel conflicted about watching it due to feeling like you're supporting a seemingly unhealthy football calendar for the players?
Can I answer this in one word?
Yeah.
No, I won't be watching it. And I just won't be watching it. And I refuse. I'll tell you what I'm going to be watching this summer. I'm watching the Women's Euros. I'm watching the Women's World Cup, Rugby World Cup. I'm watching the Lions Tour. I'll be watching Tour de France. I'll be watching Wimbledon. I'll be watching anything else but that Club World Cup. You know, because I think I don't trust his motivations, and it's quite clearly now. I can see through the politics of it all, and if it's good, it's going to pass me by. I refuse to accept that it's good. So. But when you can get 100+ million, 110 million for winning it, that's exactly what we're getting for going to the Champions League and playing 14, 15 games, wherever it was, to a semi-final. That's exactly what we're going to take home. So it's a lot of money for people if you win it. That's our most we've taken for the Champions League ever this season. So yeah, you can see why clubs are motivated. It's purely finances, right? And the finances to crush little old Arsenal and other teams that are not in it. So I heard that the four finalists from Champions League this season were not in it. Right? So other teams with historical European success are in it. Right? So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I'm generally not interested, Elliot. And watching Saka jog around for England the other day, I felt like, please, young man, get yourself on holidays, because we're not seeing the best of you because you're not healthy and not able to produce it. And I think we're going to see a lot of jogging in the Club World Cup. They've been they get their appearance money, but I don't think it's going to be highly intense. That's my gut feeling.
Well, and just you wait, because I'm sure there's going to be games played in some insane heat and humidity, knowing the U.S. in the summer. I can only be honest. I'm not going to lie to anybody here. I can say I'm not interested in it and I'm not going to watch it, because that's how I feel. But realistically, when it's Sunday morning and there's a game at 2 p.m. my time, Sunday, when PSG are playing Atletico Madrid. Atletico Madrid. Am I really not going to put it on? And that's the hard part. I don't want to support this thing. And I know all the reasons why it's not a great thing to support. But, when it's Friday night and I'm sitting at home and the kids have just gone to bed and Bayern are playing Boca Juniors and it's on TV. I mean, we're just so tuned to putting this stuff on.
I'll be asleep though, mate. But for you guys,
you don't have to worry about that.
For you guys, it's peak time, right? Why wouldn't you have it on while you're doing something else, right? So, but for me, chance.
Inter versus River Plate right after I've gotten the kids to bed. This is what I'm talking about, right? RB Salzburg versus Real Madrid right after I've gotten the kids to bed. It's just going to be hard not to put it on. And I think the problem is FIFA know, and to be fair, UEFA know, and the Premier League know, if they put football on, they'll get an audience.
But Elliot,
it's the best effing sport in the world.
But I'll tell you what, mate, if you turn on and you look up and you see the first crowd, I think they've only sold 25,000 tickets for the first game.
Yeah.
If you look at that product and you see nobody in the ground, you ain't going to keep it on for long. Right? I promise you that.
I mean, if the product is bad and you can tell that the games feel like preseason friendlies, but then again, right? Like, I watched Chelsea play MLS 11, on a streaming service I don't even subscribe to in July because I'm so starved for football. I think this is the classic conundrum, right? We are all football obsessed, and they prey on us for that. Whether it's match-going fans, their ticket prices, or streaming fans, their subscription prices, or whatever it is. I think we should leave it there. We've been going a while, and we're going to have a Transfer Daily coming out later today. Join us for it, please. Paul, it's been a pleasure having you on and hearing about topiaries. As always, you have added a delightful, colorful, playful component to a podcast, and we thank you for it.
Woohoo! I do what I can.
And we love you for that. And Clive, as ever, erudite, insightful, perspicacious, the gravitas, it's all there. We appreciate you.
I don't know what that is, but thank you very much.
Well, that undermines everything I just said. My name's Elliot Smith. I'm the dipshit who's going to be doing your Transfer Daily later. We love you. And we will talk to you after Arsenal 10 Transfer Window.